Good afternoon, everybody. I hope everybody's having an amazing Ignite day 2 afternoon. So we've, heard a lot about sort of where we are going as Azure, and you probably have also heard quite a bit about our migration strategy, migration modernization strategy. Just wanted to bring up the slide real quick. So Levi's is here today to talk about their migration and modernization strategy, but if you are interested in learning more about how to modernize your portfolio or anything about the tools that we have to offer, if you're just starting out or are in the middle of your migration modernization to the cloud, you heard a lot about our Azure Copilot that we introduced yesterday that works really well alongside GitHub Copilot in order to modernize and update your estate, move you to the cloud using agentic AI. We also have a lot of programs like our Azure Accelerate program that enable you to take advantage of partner programs as well as funds in order to accelerate your journey to the cloud. So lots and lots of information available to you, but that's not why we're here today. Today, I'd like to introduce a really, really exciting customer story, which is our Levi's partnership, and really, take advantage of the learnings that they've gone through. And they will tell you a lot about, sort of how they got to the cloud, and we'll leave lots of time for Q&A at the end. But I'd like to play a short video before bringing Michael and Shawn to the stage.
Levi's is really a growth story. It's an amazing brand, 170 plus years old, and it's all in service of being relevant. Even the product, the 501, what it meant to miners 150 years ago is not the same as what it means to youth culture today. The brand has always evolved.
We were running a very legacy stack. All our ERP was on-prem, and we had 9 of them.
We were spending far too much time maintaining the existing environment. One of the benefits of Azure is that we're moving to a zero-trust architecture. We are taking multiple ERP systems. We're combining that into one platform, which allows us to have all the data we need at our fingertips.
When we think about our mission-critical applications like SAP or Oracle, we see much higher reliability and availability.
The first thing you've got to do is get all the data in the right location so that then we can leverage AI to do the analytics and then provide us the insights we need to grow our business.
What that gives us is, if we build an agent that is available for the entire globe, we have moments in time during our peak season where we may need to increase our memory in the cloud. We have a much stronger backup and disaster recovery protocol. And what does it mean for the end user? Better performance, better response times for processing.
It's really about helping our folks be positioned to move forward with the brand. So Microsoft really underpins everything that we plan to do over the next 100 plus years.
Fantastic. Michael and Shawn, please come up.
I'm going to start off first, and then Shawn will come up and do a drill down. First of all, I want to say it's just so amazing to be standing on stage in the very city where our story started over 170 years ago. Levi Strauss partnered with the tailor Jacob Davis to patent riveted denim work pants, which were the first blue jeans. And this innovation transformed durable workwear into a global fashion staple. And if you've been in business as long as we have, one of the things that I need to grab my thing. Sorry. If you've been in business as long as we have, one of the things that you get used to is change, and that's something that we do every single day. And so this first slide shows our data centers. And we had 5 data centers. We had 2 in the United States, 1 in Brussels, 1 in Singapore, 1 in Los Angeles. And one of the things about these data centers that I would say is that they were highly automated, they were highly standardized, and we could provision services to our customers with just a few clicks of a button and within just a few minutes. And so, and while this model served us well, as time went on and the capabilities in public cloud became more and more significant, we knew we had to make a change. So what were some of the challenges? You know, number one, we were spending just a lot of time managing the data centers, doing things such as UPS generator testing, firmware updates, hypervisor updates, you name it. And these things were not adding value to our business. The other thing was we were seeing more and more capability, and we knew that we needed to be in the center of innovation, and that was public cloud. So from there, we began our journey. In fact, we started talking about this probably as early as, I guess, 2017, maybe 2018. And we began to plan, and we aligned some of our migrations with hardware refresh opportunities. So we were going to spend the money anyway to go upgrade our data centers, and we just felt that that was a good time to go ahead and make the move. And so in 2021, we moved our first data center, which was Singapore. It was one of the smaller data centers, and we used it as a learning opportunity. And then from there, we began working our way up to our largest data centers. And I'm glad to say that in June of 2026, we will be out of the private data center business. So as far as keys to success, the first thing is you have to think differently when you deal with public cloud. In private cloud, we had a number of siloed teams. So just take like the server team. We had a Linux team and we had a Windows team. We also had backup teams and storage teams and so on and so forth. And the challenge with that is each time you hand off from one customer, or excuse me, from one team to the next, it always creates some lag time. Because very, very rarely does the team that's picking up the next step, you know, they're normally just not sitting there waiting to take on that task. They're typically working on some other things. So we wanted one team to be able to do everything, okay? So we also brought our automate first mentality to the public cloud. And even though our private data centers were highly automated, we really carried it to the next level in the public cloud. We also leveraged cloud services. This is important if you're trying to get one team to know how to manage the entire solution from beginning to end. It just simplifies things. You don't have to know as much detail if you leverage cloud services. So that was certainly very important to us. We also created blueprints. We mapped out what data centers we wanted to put our workload in. And in fact, because of the number of data centers that Azure has, we were able to put the compute closer to our customer and give them better response times. We also use templates because consistency is critical. Yeah, and it also helps with automation, so that's always important. We also created a high-speed cloud connectivity to every single data center that we were in. And finally, I really want to speak a little bit about FinOps. We spent a lot of time on this particular area. We were hearing a lot of horror stories from companies that had sticker shock when they were getting their bills on a monthly basis, and they were, surprised, I guess would be the best way to say it. And we wanted to make sure that did not happen to us. So we spent quite a bit of time on our FinOps program. We created a number of different policies, and we decided that one of our rules moving forward was anyone that consumed a service in the public cloud would pay for it. In the past, I would pay for most of the private cloud infrastructure. And in fact, we managed it somewhat loosely when it came to chargebacks. I mean, if you needed a few extra processors or a little bit extra memory, and if we liked you, we'd probably just give it to you, and we didn't charge you. So that's not the case in public cloud. We like all our customers now, but we charge them all. So anyway, and we also had each one of them, they had to have an owner and a call center, and they had to establish a yearly budget. And we meet with them on a monthly basis, each one of them, to make sure that the budget and that they're trending towards their budgets. And we learn of any anomalies or anything like that going on. Those meetings are very helpful in creating proactive alerts. Since we know what your workload is supposed to be, we have guardrails, and if you step outside of it and you start spending more money than we're expecting, we will give you a phone call. We've done that even on the weekends, and we have found that people will look and go, oh, wait a minute, that is a problem, and so they will go and turn it off. And so you just really don't set it and forget it. You really need to be watching it closely. I attend monthly meetings where I'm looking at all of the data, and we've been doing this now for many years, and I'm proud to say that there's not been a single month that there has been a surprise. It's all been planned. In fact, I was looking the other day, and I don't think our finance person's in here, so I'll say this, but we're going to come in under budget this year, so that's a good thing. Last thing I'll say is we really talk and focus on discipline thought, discipline action, okay? And, you know, I know some of you're in your hotel room, you left, and you probably left the TV on, and you might have left some lights on or whatever, right? And you know what? You get your bill, no one's going to really dock you for that. And that's kind of how private cloud is. If you have an extra server running or a little extra storage here or there, because everything's thinly provisioned, it really is not an immediate cost to you. That's not the case in public cloud. You have to be very, very disciplined about what you're doing. And so, and that's not only with the cloud team, but we've built partnerships with our application teams. And we make sure they know what the costs are with the services that they need. And so, unlike in the private cloud, a lot of times they may get through with a server or something. They might or might not contact us. They do a really good job of contacting us now, letting us know that they no longer need the service, and then we can turn it down. All right, with that said, I'm going to turn it over to Shawn Harris, and he'll give you a little bit more detail.
Thank you, Michael. So as we began our cloud journey, I'm going to continue to talk about our keys to success. One of the things we wanted to start as is we wanted to start small and scale our skills. We had never managed public cloud before, and we had a team of engineers, like Michael said, that helped us manage a bunch of technology silos in our data center. We wanted to create a path for them to transition to public cloud while developing our cloud skills. So we started small. We literally started with one cloud engineer. And as we migrated our data centers, and we figured out what gaps we had, we figured out what skills we needed, we transitioned more people from our traditional team over to our cloud team. Along with this concept of starting small, we knew we wanted to leverage cloud-native services wherever possible. We wanted to be able to do our own development work. We wanted to consume the services that were in Azure. So we grew that as we went along too. Day one, we didn't manage all the cloud services that we manage today. We managed what we knew, and I'll talk about that on the next slide. And the last thing we did that was detrimental to our key to success was we did a lot of right sizing. So as Michael said, we were a heavy CapEx organization, and we paid for our own infrastructure. The customers didn't have to pay for it. And so we had a lot of system bloat. And so what we wanted to do as we went through each of our data center migrations, we tried to right size before we migrated, let the Azure tools do their job and figure out what it was going to cost and what systems we needed to use as we migrated. But we also had the opportunity to do post-migration right sizing. The reason that's important for us is most of our data centers, we tried to put on a 5-year hardware life cycle. And by the time you get to that 5th year, CPUs are old. Applications continue to grow. The application demand became greater and greater. And by the time you got to that 5 year, you were throwing a lot of horsepower in order to make that application work. When we migrated these systems to public cloud, we got to take advantage of the newer boards that were sitting in Azure, and we're actually able to do further right sizing because we were able to take advantage of those new CPUs. So on the left, that's a list of technology that we manage in our data centers. On the right, this is a list of some of the Azure services that we're taking advantage of today. We didn't start managing all of this at once. As I said previously, we started small. An example, we manage virtual machines in our private data center. So as we migrated to Azure, it was just natural that we started managing virtual machines in Azure. And then as we built our confidence, we started creating a cross-functional team that was managing all of these services. And I'm proud to say today, our cloud team has all of these skill sets. I can go to any person on my team, they can manage a database, they can manage a load balancer, and we've done a lot around this to simplify the process that I'll talk about later. This represents a blueprint of how we deploy our Azure data centers. It's built upon the Azure framework, and going from the bottom up, like I said earlier, we started small, and when we started connecting our public clouds to our private data centers and all of our regional sites, we started leveraging VPN connectivity, and we very quickly realized that's not going to scale for us. We don't want to manage that. And so we established fast network connectivity using ExpressRoute and SD-WAN. The other thing that we did as we built on this well-architected framework is we leveraged the hub and spoke model. So as we were operating in our private data center, we had a very flat network. People think of Levi Strauss as a US company, but we are spread across the entire globe. We knew we wanted to change our security architecture as we migrated. And so as we moved our services from our data centers to our public clouds, we leveraged a zero trust model. And so as part of this hub and spoke model, we put all of our core resources in our hub, and each of our subscriptions, which we call spokes, were organized based on applications, grouping, or business units. And so no spoke can talk to any spoke without traffic being inspected going through the hub and using our security devices that sit in that hub. Additionally, we try to limit left and right traffic within the spoke. So as you can see, application 1 cannot talk to application 2 unless we allow it to. Michael mentioned our FinOps program. So as we started small, we had to learn FinOps along with learning public cloud. And so when we started this journey out, we went out and we procured a third-party FinOps tool to help us with this. And as we matured our public cloud, we outgrew that tool. And within 18 months, we had made the decision to hire a FinOps engineer that was capable of doing developing and build our own tool. What you're seeing on the screen is version 2 of our tool. And we built upon a product Microsoft gave us called the Microsoft FinOps Toolkit. And we leveraged the data factory and the data lake storage and ADX to take all the data from our public clouds and visualize it with Power BI. The reason we moved to the FinOps Toolkit is because everybody in our company has access to Copilot. We ultimately want to take this data, and instead of having a monthly meeting with our customers, we wanted to automate our anomaly detection, and we want to give the data, allow the customer to access the data any time of the month that they want, not just the first day of the next month. So other things we did that really contributed to our success. Michael showed you that we had 5 data centers that we migrated. Yes, we migrated them based on our infrastructure refresh cycles, but we also tried to tie those migrations to direct business outcomes, not just infrastructure refresh cycles. So we set clear goals. Each of our data centers had very clear goals, and we had success metrics for each of our data center migrations. We didn't achieve the same savings as we did in all of them, but we went in with goals, and we met, I'm happy to say so far, we've met all of the goals of our migrations. The other thing we did, and I think this is absolutely vital, is we went into this with a top-down approach. If you try to do it from the bottom up, you're never going to get migrated. You got to show the value in your migrations, and that kind of aligns with starting small. Start with something small, show your leadership team the value in it, and then it's easier to get that top-down buy-in. So some of the benefits. So when we were in our private data center, we offered a multitude of services. But in order to build a new service, sometimes it would take months, sometimes it would take years, we'd have to procure hardware. By moving to public cloud, we no longer have to build all that those hardware-based services. We can just consume it, which that really allowed us to drive a competitive advantage and increase and deliver upon the demand of our customers. Demand, when we used to have months and years to be able to deliver a service, that become less tolerable with our customers as services became available in public cloud. And so we're just kind of aligning with what their expectations are. We also were able to increase our agility. And most importantly, we created a cross-functional team. So we no longer have to go and talk to these siloed teams in order to get work done. We can do the work ourselves. Sometimes we have to consult, but for the most part, all those services I listed earlier, one team supports. We talked about improved response times. So yes, we were able to move workload closer, but we're also able to take advantage of the newer hardware that exists in public cloud. And then lastly, we're able to take advantage of AI. We're trying to put AI into all of our workflows, whether it's from the technician that's working on an incident or the engineer that's trying to plan for a project. So from a business and IT impact perspective, we're able to deliver to our based on our customers' demand. We're able to establish a global reach, which ultimately creates a competitive advantage for our company. From an IT perspective, as we moved out of the private data centers, we're able to scale up and scale down. When we were buying hardware in these private data centers, the hardware, if it was unused, just sat there. It was still depreciated. It was still causing a cost. If customers want to drop cost, we just have to reduce what's in public cloud, and the cost drops down with it. We're also able to do very effective drive cost efficiency. So via right sizing. So we see what the customers are doing. So even though we feel like we're deploying the right type of system and the right architecture from the beginning, if we see a customer is underutilizing a system, we can quickly change VM types or whatever it is that they're using. We can downsize it. And then lastly, this was a great advantage for us. We had those 5 data centers across the globe, but our disaster recovery solution across some of the remote data centers just wasn't that great. And as we were able to migrate from some of those data centers to public cloud, we took advantage of those paired data centers that Microsoft had out there, and we were able to create regional disaster recovery capability we never had in this 172-year-old company. With all that said, as part of our migrations, we did have some lessons learned. So we did a pretty good job grouping our applications, but you got to use a lot of caution when you're grouping them. So I'll use an example. We migrated a web cluster one day, and we didn't monitor it long enough to determine how often it was used. Come to find out, the web server, a particular website was only used like once a month. Well, we just happened to migrate it the day before it was going to be used, and we had to do a fallback. So the takeaway there is understand how your application interconnectivity is set up, and figure out and group your applications accordingly when you migrate. On a similar situation was with costing. So Microsoft has very good tools for analyzing what your systems are doing, what your templated virtual machine should be when you migrate. However, we had one gotcha. We had a very large system that ran big batch cycles once a month, and we missed that batch cycle in our calculations, and it was a significant cost difference after we migrated. We were able to account for it, but in terms of lessons learned, they're pretty two big ones. So with that in mind, I think, Michael, are you going to come up, and we're going to open it up for Q&A. Go ahead.
Is it on?
So that's a good question. So we're working to migrate our last data center right now. But once we're done, we'll have about 2,000 virtual machines plus all of the cloud services that we have migrated. Off the top of my head, I can't tell you how many petabytes of data we moved, but it's quite a few. At the end of this year, we'll have about 39 people on that team spread out across the globe, different ranges of skill sets, but everybody on the team is capable of doing engineer level work. Yeah. So when we did our first migration, we looked at AVS. Long story short, we were a fan, but when you did the cost analysis, it just didn't make sense for us. It's a great product, didn't work for us. Any more questions?
Outside of the data centers, do you have additional compute that still lives in locations?
That's a good question. So Michael mentioned we migrated 5 data centers, but when we started this journey, we actually had server compute in 37 countries. And so we do have a few isolated pockets of compute that's out there, and it's either there for legal reasons or it's there for safety reasons.
Yeah, in fact, we found that those sites were harder to manage than the data centers themselves, even though there was a lot more compute in the data centers because of the automation that we had created. But when you were in these small sites, a lot of it was just sitting in corporate facilities. It was really pretty difficult to support that. So we quickly moved that.
That's true. So we had these 5 data centers. We have these 37 sites. And when we started this journey, we did some analysis. We spent 80% of our time on these 37 sites. So it was very important for us to get rid of them. Good question. Yep. So Microsoft did help us a few times, but for the bulk of it, as we got better, we were able to do more and more ourselves.
So mainly initially, like one of our first migrations, that's when we needed the help. But then after that, you just rinse and repeat, basically. The other thing I'd say is that the tools got better over time. So the migration tools that we started with versus what they have today are night and day difference. So I would say today, if we were moving, it would be easier to move than it was back in 2021.
Hi. So how did you convince the business units in terms of now we are migrating to cloud, they're going to start getting the bills, right? Because in the hindsight, they were getting the bills, not the bills, it was costing the company.
Yeah.
Maybe at the corporate level or somewhere. So how did you convince? Did you show them any charge, show back or something like those charges? Hey, it is costing us today.
It took a lot of, it didn't happen overnight. So we did our first data center migration in 2021. As Michael said, we started talking about this in 2018. And the first thing, the stars kind of aligned for us on our first migration. We had a major tech refresh scheduled for a data center in Asia. On top of that, I told you we aligned our migrations to business outcomes. It just so happened that our data center resided in an office where the office lease was coming up for renewal. So what we did is we did the analysis of what it was going to cost to tech refresh all of the equipment in there, server, storage, network, and it just well outweighed the cost of migrating to Azure. So that's how we started the migration. Now, in terms of passing the cost back to our customers, well, it really tied back to what Michael was saying. And we had some good partners that were willing to give this a try. But we just strongly felt up front, if the customer was responsible for their own cost, they would help drive down the cost. And so we have strong metrics on this. And on average, if we just knock on a customer's door and we tell them we're migrating out of a data center and you're going to get the bill after we migrate, 23% of the systems got decommissioned.
Yep. Yeah, and so we've heard the left pocket, right pocket discussion from finance quite a bit, but we can tell you with certainty, if they pay, then they are a lot more disciplined about the services that they consume. So we believe that's extremely important. Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
So are these migration of yours, is this mostly lift and shift, or is it actually moving resources into like Azure, like Azure
Good question. As we got better, the more and more we moved to services directly. When we started out, when you say lift and shift, what I think is I'm going to move the exact configuration that I have on-prem to public cloud. We never did that. We always resized. So it was a lift and shift, but we did optimize as we migrated. The more we got mature, the more we started leveraging things like Azure SQL Managed Instance and Azure SQL Database, and that's really allowed us to optimize our team size and allow them to refocus on things that really deliver business value instead of working on a server.
Did you get any pushback from like IT engineers about changing to cloud, and how did you handle that?
Frankly, no. We had a very mature engineer workforce, and they constantly want to learn. And so every engineer that was on our team that wanted to move and work in public cloud has had the opportunity to do that.
The other thing I'd say is our customers wanted to go there.
Yeah.
In fact, they went there first because and I think this is true about any company. Wherever the capability resides, that's where your customers are going, and you either go with them or they'll go without you.
Yeah.
So that's how it started.
As we built this FinOps program, we started taking more and more control over cloud. And we found quite a few instances out there where customers had went to public cloud themselves and started paying for it with a credit card. And so as we became more mature, we pulled them in-house and we started pulling them consolidating them under our enterprise account. Any other questions?
Yeah, somebody in the back.
When you started converting your teams to a cloud team, did that also include IT security? Is that separate, or are they converging now? Like, how's that happening?
It's a good question. So everybody's a part of IT security, right? But no, we did not pull security into our team. They're still a separate organization, but we partner tightly with them.
So the other thing I'd add to that is they give us standards that they want us to implement, and we do that work for them, and then they come back and check and make sure everything is set the way that they like. But we will do the work. We'll make sure make sure the templates are set up, the zero trust, all of that. But we do partner with them, and they talk to us about the things that they want to see implemented as we migrate.
Any other questions?
Yeah, let me ask a question. You guys talked a lot about the migration process, but what are you most excited about once you actually finish the migration? Like, what's the next step?
Sure. Yep. Well, first of all, number one, we love the fact that we're now in a zero trust environment. Number two, we're just excited that we are in the center of innovation. We have driven tremendous amounts of efficiencies by moving to public cloud. The other thing is that when we need capacity, it's there for us to use. And in fact, that's gotten us in trouble, or gotten us out of trouble rather, in times where we went in and we thought we needed X, and in fact, we needed more or whatever. So there's just a tremendous amount of flexibility that we have. And then again, it just goes back to the capability. I mean, who would have thought back, we were talking about this back in 2018, that AI would be where it is today, right? And so now we're there and we're able to harness all of that capability, and we believe that's really what's going to give us a competitive advantage.
Agreed.
Hi. You might have mentioned it already, but now that you've fully migrated, have you had a chance to compare your costs for on-prem data centers versus the cloud? Have you actually saved money? Because you hear a lot of horror stories from people that, yeah, we went to the cloud and our costs have doubled or tripled.
I'll speak to that. So the answer is yes. We started out with one data center in Singapore. We knew exactly what that cost was going to be. We then estimated, we knew how long we would depreciate that equipment. We then did the analysis to see what it would take to go to Azure, and that absolutely made sense. And then every single one since then has made sense. Because there's a lot of cost associated with data centers that you may not even think about, right? So, most of the cost resides in my cost center, but then you start talking about UPS and chillers and generators and just all sorts of things that go on. And you have to take into account all of those things, all together. And then just the amount of personnel it takes. When I was talking about doing all the testing on the firmware upgrades and all those that we don't have to do anymore, there was a lot of resources tied up in those types of things. I will tell you this, we're migrating our largest data center right now. And like I said, we'll finish in 2026, and we had a budget set for this year, and we came within $3,000 of hitting that this year. Yeah. So we've really dialed in the numbers pretty well. We know what it cost, no doubt about that.
Quite a bit.
Yep.
You spoke of right sizing quite a bit. Are your servers or VMs like running hot? What do they look like on a day-to-day basis, I guess?
Now that they're in public cloud?
Correct, yeah.
No, they're not running hot. No. In fact, every tier 1 application that we've migrated, our customers have knocked on our door and are happy with the performance because they feel like it's improved, especially with our point of sale applications.
And I guess the right side, you guys use the migration tools and the advisor and things like that, or was it your own analysis?
All of above. So we try to start out with the migration tool that Azure provides. In some cases, we learned over time, certain systems migrate better by using Azure Site Recovery or other tools to migrate, but predominantly we use the Azure migration tool. Take the recommendations from there. Now, we do have a rule of thumb, I can't remember it off the top of my head. Whatever it recommends, we go like 20% lower, and it's been pretty close. In a few occasions, maybe I should have put this on the lessons learned, understand your license requirements. We had a couple applications from a performance standpoint, the application would have functioned fine with the VM architecture we put it on, but the license was looking for a certain number of cores, and the app would not start without that number of cores being present. That caused us definitely a costing impact because it was a significant increase that we had to do.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
The one other thing I would add is just always stay curious of what's out there, and because we often find that we will go in with a particular solution, and then maybe 6 months later or a year later, there's some other type of solution out there that is better, cheaper, faster. And so you just it's a constant education of what's out there. And it's definitely not a set it and forget it situation. But that's helped us lower cost over time. Is if we start seeing problems in one particular area, there's almost always a solution that we can go and try to drive that down.
Michael talked about us meeting with our customers once a month. I meet with my cloud team once a month, and I have my FinOps engineer walk through any opportunities that we have that we missed throughout the month. We talked about migrating. There's been times where we missed applying a reservation or applying a savings plan, and so we had to go back and retrofit that. But very important, very important. I meet with my technical guys just as we meet with our customers.
How fun was it to work with like private endpoints and private links and all that fun stuff that has matured since then?
So we went in with the well-architected framework from the beginning. I wouldn't say we got everything right. In fact, I would say we had it too locked down at the beginning, but we have learned We talked about the security team. They're walking along with us on this journey. And so we're definitely learning. There's always opportunities for improvement, but for the most part, I think we started from the ground up with a zero trust model. Nothing else? Okay.
All right. Thank you.
Happy Easter.